Figures with 5 points of articulation are pretty much what started like the whole action figure business and Star Wars action figures in general. Starting in 1977, Kenner produced these 5 POA figures, and in modern days, they really started making them too for like The Force Awakens, Last Jedi, and all those types of movies. So in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the top 10 best 5 POA Star Wars figures in my collection, and we're not going to be including vintage figures because they would kind of just take up the whole list. We'll be doing another separate video about the top 10 best vintage figures. So let's get into it. Here we go. Okay, so like I said earlier, there's not going to be any vintage figures on the list. There's a lot of really great vintage figures, so I'm going to be doing a separate video. And on this list, there's going to be more modern, like Rogue One, Force Awakens type figures, and more like Power of the Force 2, older 5 POA figures. So we're going to start it off with the 5 POA Empire Strikes Back, Power of the Force 2, Luke Skywalker figure. Now this guy, I just said 5 POA, he's actually 6 technically because this wrist, but this wrist only articulates for a play feature that, you know, was meant to cut off his hand for Empire Strikes Back, which is a really cool feature, and that's kind of part of the reason I put him as number 10 on our list. The next one on our list is a more modern figure, and that is Rose Tico. Just kidding. It is the Shore Trooper from Rogue One. This guy's just a really good looking figure overall, and for a modern 5 POA figure, I just really like the detail and the look of this kind of like Shore Trooper display or like a Rogue One display. Just looks phenomenal. Next figure up on our list is another Power of the Force 2 figure, and I feel like the Power of the Force 2 figures are generally a little bit of a step behind the modern figures just when it comes to like detail and overall aesthetic. But they look different, and they just kind of have a nostalgic vibe for me because I used to use them a lot when I was a kid to play with and whatnot. But we've got the prune face figure, and this guy I feel like is just kind of iconic as a figure. You know, I feel like we see a lot of like prune face, and he's just a well-known, very iconic, very like good-looking Power of the Force 2 figure, and that eye patch just looks pretty great. And I have 2 of these guys actually, so I'll put one of them here, and we'll keep the other one in the bin for now. Alright, so next one up on our list, we actually have another Power of the Force 2 figure, and that is going to be Forlom. Now this is one of the bounty hunters we see in the Empire Strikes Back lineup. He's friends with Zuckuss, and I put this guy on the list just because of like all that rust detail on his body, and when this guy's displayed in the lineup, all the rust and the silver contrast, he just looks really nice set up next to all the other bounty hunters. So I decided to make him number 6 on our list. Next up on our list, we have one of the more modern figures, and this one was released, I forget the year, but it is Grand Inquisitor from Rebels. This is just a really cool figure, and with that Inquisitor lightsaber and just kind of the slim aesthetic of the figure, and just a different animation style and different art style of the figure, I wanted to put him on the list too. I do like this figure quite a bit, and I think obviously it would have been better with full articulation, but it's just a cool figure, and the Rebels animation style, I think we needed to have one of those figures on the list. So he's number 5 on our list. Alright, now we're in top 5 territory, and these guys are the best of the best, maybe except for the top 5 guy. I'm sure there's better ones. But the top 5 is another more modern figure from The Force Awakens, and I actually like some of the other Rise of Skywalker Last Jedi figures of this guy better. But that is Kylo Ren, and like him or hate him, he was one of the only characters in the sequel trilogy to actually have character development, so that's definitely positive. As for the figure itself, I just really like this lightsaber and the way he just kind of looks when he's standing there being imposing. I'm going to set him up here so you can see, but he kind of just looks like imposing standing here or looking down across, you know, a battlefield or whatnot, and in a display, he looks really good. Next up on our list is the first ever Grand Moff Tarkin figure. This guy had to be on the list. They didn't make a vintage figure of him, and so Power of the Force 2 stepped up and they made a Grand Moff Tarkin figure, and it's a good one. It definitely looks like Peter Cushing for a Power of the Force 2 figure, and overall it's just a solid Imperial Admiral Grand Moff figure, so I'm just going to be putting him number 4 on our list. Okay, top 3. Now these guys I think are the best, probably the best 5 POA figures that have been made. 2 of them are Power Force 2, one of them is a more modern figure. And these guys are just phenomenal figures. So, starting at number 3, we've got Power of the Force 2, Darth Vader. This Darth Vader is number 3 because of some of his features. For a Power of the Force 2 figure, this guy's packed. He also, by the way, has 6 POA like that Luke did because of the removable wrist feature, which allows you to cut off his hand as shown in Return of the Jedi. This was the first ever Darth Vader to feature a removable helmet, and the face sculpt underneath the helmet's not too bad. Overall, the detail on this figure is also really nice, and compared to other figures in the 5 POA and like Power of the Force 2 lines, this figure is just packed with features, and it's just a really good figure. He also has a removable cape. I'm not going to take it off now, but it's super easy. He is number 3 on the list. Alright, next up we've got number 2 on the list, and that is Power of the Force 2 Bosk. This guy, for a Power of the Force 2 figure, looks phenomenal, and I'd say honestly for any figure this guy looks phenomenal. His whole detail and sculpting aspect of him, they really do look like Bosk, and I think this thing can honestly compete with some of the more modern, like even some of the more articulated figures in just how it looks in a display, because it really is just a really nice looking figure. So that's why I'm gonna put it in the number 2 spot on our list. Alright, up next we have the number 1 spot, and this is probably going to be my most controversial pick out of all of them. I think we can all agree that Bosk and Vader though are really solid figures. This one is more for like the personal like nostalgia of it rather than it being like an really good figure itself, and it's going to be Rose Tico. Now I just love Rose Tico as a character because it's Luke Skywalker. Now, this guy reminds me of like what I would imagine the Grandmaster Legends Luke Skywalker to look like. And it wasn't Rose Tico, that was a joke, just so you're aware. This guy, especially without his cape on, just looks how you would imagine like Grandmaster Luke to look. And even though I really disliked how they made his character arc in The Last Jedi, it was awful, man. I hated that they did that to Luke. This figure is a good 5 POA figure, you know? It's got a ball joint at the head, and I think like the face detail with like the hair and everything is just really phenomenal, and same with the whole outfit. The mechanical hand also looks great. This figure gives me some serious Grandmaster Luke from like Legacy era and Legends vibes, and overall it is probably my favorite 5 POA figure in my collection. Now, keep in mind this is all just my opinion, and so I'm sure if yours differs, that's totally okay. And this list is definitely not the end-all be-all because there is a ridiculous amount of 5 POA figures I didn't cover, and I'm sure there's plenty in my collection that might be better than some of these that I just didn't think about and didn't realize I had because there's a lot of them. So if you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing because we're almost at 200. We're at like 185 right now, and I'm going to be trying to upload every day for the next 30 days, even though I'm going to be traveling 2 weeks out of that time. And yeah. If you're looking forward to that, hit the notification bell so you can see it. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Have a great day or night wherever you may be. May the Force be with you always.